everyone. This is Raphael.
I'm Loryn.
We're the Pacheco siblings, and welcome to the Hypercube podcast, a talk show in which two siblings converse about anything and everything. So, one thing that we shouldn't neglect to mention is that, because this is our first recording session for the podcast after Resident Roleplay Prometheus has premiered. So,
Yeah.
that's a whole thing. For those who don't,
It's a whole thing.
For those who don't know, Resident Roleplay Prometheus is our tabletop RPG actual play show in which we play a campaign based in the world of the Resident Evil video games. So, yeah, of course, I'm a huge Resident Evil super fan. I guess that's podcast known, but yeah, we did that. We did a whole Resident Evil based campaign for 3 years, and then it concluded, and now it's kind of in a bit of a revival with Prometheus, which is basically one last little closure arc to say goodbye to the campaign and these characters, and closing up some loose ends with them facing their ally turned enemy, Emil Johansson, who used to be your character.
Yeah, he used to be mine. And then, well, he's not anymore.
Yeah, story happened. So, yeah, that's currently ongoing for those who haven't yet seen it. It's actually, it's of course, it has a lot of story baggage from the campaign, especially seeing as it's playing off specifically from things that happened in the campaign. However, I still would recommend watching it if you are interested in seeing us do some RPG content. It's still just a fun time with a fun group and hopefully good storytelling, which, yeah, as always, is always a good time. But I tried to keep in mind too, especially knowing for a fact that we do have some people who are actually watching it that are unfamiliar with the core campaign, and also the fact that it's been years since we played the core campaign, so we could use the reminder ourselves. I do try to narrate it in such a way as to keep reminders of things that happened before, or kind of work into some of the descriptions, brief recaps, so that everybody could kind of be on the same page either way. But yeah, it's been a long time in the works, and I'm really excited to be back in the GM seat and to be playing with that group again, because it's been a long time since we've been together.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Also, we had a pretty dope audio log in part 1.
That was so
and
fun.
That was awesome to work on. We worked with Catabel, who's a pretty awesome voice actress that we've worked with on a number of occasions now, and got to have you in session opposite her. That was just a fun session to direct. And I think the audio log turned out super well. Huh?
I was super excited to do that audio log because I had gotten the script for it, or like the loose script. No, I think the script he gave me a while ago was the script we ended up using on the
no, it was the first draft.
Yeah,
we ended up using maybe a second draft, I think.
Okay,
was about it.
It was, it from what I remember, it was mostly about the same whenever we did it. But I remember getting that script, that first draft, a while ago, and just freaking out because I was like, "What's happening? What? Oh, this is my character, or this was my character? Wow, that's a long way to go." Go watch the episode to get that audio log. It's a ride.
Oh,
crazy stuff happens.
Oh yeah. And just being able to do an audio log now at my current level of sound mixing and engineering and audio knowledge, it was kind of a blast. And again, like hearing the difference in quality between that one and I think literally all of the audio logs that came before, because is pretty astounding.
Audio engineering now. You actually understand like real principles of audio engineering.
Yeah. So I have a bit more of a theory to work with,
and I'm just like, and I also just have a lot more practice at acting and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. And then having a professional voice actress on board too to act ops, it's like it's all around like leagues above any of the other audio logs we did for that campaign.
Let me tell you right now, Raph, it is a completely different experience. I don't know if you've had this experience, but it is a completely different experience. Acting against a professional, like, it's totally different. Like, I remember specific moments in the recording session where I'm just like, I need to be better. I need to step my game up. She is acting.
Yeah, it's for real. And yeah, I think a lot of people had strong reactions to that. And yeah, it's a pretty intense little scene that's played out. And yeah, it was just a ton of fun to direct you both. And Catabelle is always a blast to work with, and she turns in a phenomenal performance in that one. And I think it was kind of cool because for that one we would go through the entire scene as a full read through of the scene with you two going back and forth between each other,
like theater,
doing and I would give directions in between run throughs as entire takes. I would get in between those takes, I would give directions to kind of curate it and nudge it in the right direction and dial in some of the line readings.
Yeah.
But for the last take that we did, I pretty much didn't give any direction and just say, let's just get one more take and you guys do whatever you want to do. Keep in mind all the previous direction, but just do whatever you feel you want to do. And I think you both kind of looked at each other and made the same decision.
Yeah.
And you both like almost at the same time said, I think what she said was, I'm going to go dramatic. And you're like, oh yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I'm going to go big. Yeah. And so you both went big on the last take. And it's phenomenal. And that's actually the take I ended up using. Yeah. So, a majority of it, at least. Yeah. I had to swap out specific lines for ones that felt a little bit more better contextualized in their flow and in their specific intonation.
But however, that's why we do takes.
Most of those, yeah, exactly. That's why we have takes. But a majority of it was all from that same last run through. Yeah. So the one where and that's an awesome thing to feel as a director, is to be in that position where it's just like, okay, we got it dialed in. Now I think you guys know what I'm getting at, and you have a feel for the scene. Just let loose and just let me take a step back and let you guys follow your instincts. And that got the best results.
It was so fun. It was so like, especially that last take. I was just like I'm gonna stop worrying about sounding. I don't know. Like, I'm gonna stop worrying about like sounding right. I'm just gonna put emotion and just rawness into it. And it's like, okay, no, that's what this scene needs. It's like, it's not just being able to do the words and being able to like, obviously having good, what's the word? Clarity of like in the words,
like diction.
Diction, yes. Like, obviously having good diction is fine. It's kind of important. But the first few takes is just making sure I'm saying the right words, right? And then at that point, it's like, okay, I understand. Like, I know the script. I know all the words. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now I can just go into it and do it. I don't have to worry about flubbing any lines or anything like that, because it's like, we already did it 5 times already.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, Resident Roleplay Prometheus is currently ongoing. We're live streaming it every Saturday evening. Around 7 o'clock Eastern time. However, that is subject to variables because we have a lot of different people in a lot of different time zones and a lot of different schedules to wrangle. We're all super busy. So it varies by a few hours on occasion, but generally speaking, Saturday evenings is when we live stream, at least here in the United States. And then VODs are uploaded to YouTube the Monday after. So yeah, you could catch up either way. It's going to be a very exciting conclusion to this campaign that has really been very special to us and really kind of changed the trajectory of our lives in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's exciting, but we just had to plug that because that's been a huge part of our lives lately, is getting back to that and getting back to these characters and telling this story and kind of applying a lot of the lessons we've learned just about role playing in general and running the game and all of that. There's just been so much learning. And even though it's been a while since I've been back in the GMC, it just feels really natural because I had all that practice that came before. And so maybe the practice is a little rusty. However, I have a lot more theory as well and have given a lot more thought into how to go about it. And like the thing about the practice is, I had 3 years of it. So it's like, that's not muscle memory that disappears fast, even if it has been a year and a half since we last played. But regardless, That's been that first session. We've only done one session so far as of this recording, which was part 1. And that was so much fun. So much fun to get back together with everybody and play that.
It was great.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this goes.
I love being able to play one of my characters as a new character, but the same character.
That's an actually interesting twist. We got to talk about that probably in a further breakdown after Prometheus is over.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I want to give a little bit more behind the scenes of just like Emil stuff as well, because I edited Emil's trailer, or the Prometheus trailer, after I read that script for the voiceovers, for the audio log, which means I knew about the Emil twist, the Emil special.
Yeah.
So I was like, I had written that little monologue years ago, when I was preparing for Emil to start turning bad. when I was heading him in that direction, I prepared that monologue years ago. And then I came back on it because I was like, I wanted to make this again. It's like, oh yeah, we also need a trailer for Prometheus. I was like, oh, I'll just make this the trailer. Or I think you said to make that the trailer. And I looked back on it, I was like, yeah, this is unchanged. Yeah, this is perfect. This is Emil. This is exactly where he ended up going anyways, which was awesome to be able to look back on that old character work and say, yeah, this still applies. We did end up making this a thing. And it was really great. But then when I started editing it, I was like, wait, I know something about Emil that will be revealed later, but doesn't necessarily, like, if you just look at it literally, doesn't reveal anything inherently about him. So I was like, oh wait, I can have him, like, I can have him teleport in the actual trailer and have like that Spectre virus mist stuff happen. And I was like, nobody will think that's a literal thing. Like, nobody's gonna look at that and go like, oh wow, Emil has superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it works as like a teaser and a foreshadowing of things to come. Yeah, it's great trailer work.
Yeah, because like, it hits the beats of the of the songs, like, and it looks dramatic and cinematic and everything like that. But it's like nobody's gonna look at that and go like, oh, he teleported. but it's like, yeah, the effect was there. And then if you look back on that trailer and see, and like with knowing everything that happens in the first episode, it's like, yeah, nope, that's new Emil. that is new Emil.
Exactly. Oh yeah, there's a lot that we'll have to talk about later on too. After after the fact, like I said, we probably need to do a roundtable discussion
for sure.
And after this little mini campaign is over.
We always do the Resident recaps. That's the one that we do when we finish an arc, right? We go back and talk about it.
Or Resident Retrospect.
Retrospect is the one. Now. Resident recaps was the one.
It used to be called recaps.
Well, that got rebranded to be.
It used to be called Resident. Yeah, it used to be called Resident Retrospect or Resident Recap. However, we rebranded it to be Resident Retrospect because we wanted to call the actual recaps.
Yeah.
So instead of the discussions. But anyway, yeah, we'll definitely have to do a breakdown of that and do a sort of look at our process of setting up this mini campaign and all that goes into the collaboration of it. But yeah, it's really exciting. So speaking of RPGs though, have you seen, I already know the answer because you never watch trailers, but have you seen the D&D Honor Among Thieves trailer?
I have, but I have not seen it. I have no idea what I'm supposed to make of this thing. Because like, is this like a serious like fantasy thing with D&D themes, or is it like D&D shenanigans? Is this like weird?
I mean, it's a proper D&D movie.
Yeah, but like, there's so many different ways D&D can go though. Like obviously, like there's the EXP Calamity, like high level dramatic BS that's happening there, and then there's just like, I don't know, 99 shenanigans, right? Like there's so many different ways you can make an authentic D&D show. Is this like serious fantasy? Is this just like, is this comedic? I don't know what I'm supposed to think about it. Like, obviously watching the trailer would just tell me, I imagine, but I don't watch trailers for whatever reason. I'm starting to go back on that a little bit. It's like, actually, I should at this point just watch trailers. It's just good. Just keep me in the loop. It's just good information to have. Watch these trailers every now and then. But I don't know what's the tone. What's the tone of this? Is it a series?
It's a film.
It's a film.
A feature film.
What's the tone of this film here? Is this
theatrical feature film? So it's I think tone wise, it is kind of a mixed bag. It's like everything you expect D&D to be. It's kind of fun, kind of silly, kind of adventure-y, and all high fantasy. Yeah. But it's like we talked about before. We were talking, I think before they came out with this trailer, I think we were talking about this movie back when it was announced. We were talking about The Legend of Vox Machina,
right? And
how that was such a perfect D&D show. Like it was a proper adaptation. You could see the mechanics in it. You could see a lot of D&D iconography, but also iconography that's just from that Critical Role campaign.
Yeah.
And it was just, everything about it was just such a perfect adaptation. I was like, it's hard to imagine, something that's more D&D than this. But yeah, after watching the trailer for this, and that's why I was kind of skeptical about this, because I was like, it almost feels like Critical Role kind of beat them to the punch in doing something that's high production value D&D adaptation. However, this is kind of interesting because I feel like it is tonally, I think, a little bit similar to The Legend of Vox Machina, to be sure, but it's definitely, I think it's a little bit more, and this is going to sound like an insult, but it's a little bit more generic in a good way. Like, it's like, because with Vox Machina, that's one specific party that has its own specific reputation and iconography.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is like kind of more general D&D, where it's just like, okay, this could be anybody's party. Yeah, this is like, and it's a pretty interesting sort of setup for the party. They've got some good character classes in there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I love about it, is that it's obviously I'm going to say it's obviously made by people who enjoy the game, but that's like everybody now, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like D&D is so popular that I guess that hadn't occurred to me, that D&D is now so popular that any adaptation of it, right, from like industry professionals is going to nail the right beats.
Yeah, ideally.
Because those are just the kinds of people who play D&D.
So
are the people who work in VFX, the
right,
people who
all the
write movies, the people who produce movies. Like, those are all D&D nerds.
All those nerds. So what I'm getting is Vox Machina, Legend of Vox Machina was about Vox Machina in D&D. This is more about D&D, and not a party, but like D&D the experience.
Yeah, in essence, it feels like it hits all of those beats of like D&D meme humor meets, actual D&D adventure book meets kind of just a hodgepodge of things, because there's so much in the trailer. Like, the sheer density of D&D in the trailer is actually kind of insane. Like, there's so many mechanics that you could see that you could recognize in action. So many iconic monsters, straight out of the books. Although apparently there's some sketchy plagiarism going on in the poster. Whoever designed the poster for the film, where apparently there was some ripped Pathfinder art that appears in the poster for some of the monsters. And
like copy and pasted PG stuff, or like
like copy and pasted
PNGs.
No.
That's just lazy.
It is pretty lazy. People were pointing out, it's like, I wonder how much like sketchy stuff is in that poster, if somebody could spot the Intellect Devourer from Pathfinder. But there is a mimic in the poster too that is straight out, that is the monster manual artwork for it, and people were like, okay, that one's lazy but completely legal.
But Pathfinder, not Wizards of the Coast.
Pathfinder, completely different game, completely different company. That's so I hope they so that's the thing.
I hope
they licensed it.
But I was gonna say, like, that's the thing with like D&D as well, where the term D&D now just means role-playing game, right? Like, do you play D&D? Yeah, I play D&D. I go to a Pathfinder game every week. Right? It's it's like, oh yeah, like I love 3.5, which is a D&D edition. So therefore I play Pathfinder. which is not Wizards of the Coast, it's Paizo. And it's like those are two different things. And I wondered if that person legitimately did not know that was a different game.
It's quite possible because, again, yeah, what you say about the way we use the language of D&D as RPGs in that culture is kind of ubiquitous, and it does kind of upset me a little bit, and that's why I try actively to say RPGs when I'm not talking about D&D, right? Because it is a part of the culture that has limited it and constrained it a lot, right? Where a lot of people, all they know is D&D.
Yeah.
And there are so many good role-playing games, first of all. Let's just establish that as a base fact. There are so many good role-playing games that aren't D&D. And what's worse is that there are a lot of people who should not be playing D&D.
Yeah.
Who like are looking for the experience they're looking for in an RPG is out there, and it's not in D&D.
Yeah.
And there's so many complaints that you would hear where it's just like, you, my friend, are simply looking for a different game. Let me recommend to you this dope game that you would be much happier playing.
Yeah. It's like, oh wow, you're trying to play like this low fantasy dark detective setting where combat isn't super important in D&D. No, you need to be playing Call of Cthulhu. That's entirely like that. Like that's just what it is. You just described Call of Cthulhu. But all you know is D&D because that's all that's marketed, and it's not all that's marketed, but that's all that like the community likes to talk about because it's so big and monolithic.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's an aside tangent.
But that's why even if I'm talking about D&D, I still use GM as a generic, just like I am a GM.
That's true.
Because DM, people don't realize, is trademarked. Dungeon Master is specific to D&D. You are not a Dungeon Master if you are heading literally any other game other than D&D. Because Dungeons and Dragons is a Dungeon Master, a DM. The other games have other names for the people who are in charge. Like I believe White Wolf uses storyteller to whoever's doing that, like or like referee for some other games. I don't know what Pathfinder uses. They might just
Pathfinder uses GM.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they might use generic game master, but
I think they established that term.
Probably,
yeah.
But
because they were probably the first ones that needed it.
They're like, okay, we need a name for a DM that's not a DM because DM is trademarked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose storyteller goes back even further, but like they were like the first one that came from that legacy of D&D.
Yeah.
Where they were working off of the open source, SRD for 3.5.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people use that habit as well. I do still say DM when I'm like, no, I'm referring specifically to GMing for D&D. However, like I've heard a lot of people actually. What?
You just did it.
What do you mean?
You just said I still use DM when I refer to GMing for D&D.
Oh, well, what I mean is
I know.
Because I did that intentionally though. Like I did that to use the generalized term for the process.
But it's just funny that that's just how it is. Like
yeah. Well, because that is the generalized term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a lot of people who use GM like even when talking about D&D, to keep that abstraction. So, but anyway, that's kind of an aside. So my point is the sheer density of D&D in the trailer is pretty immense. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff you could recognize, mechanics wise, monsters wise, classes wise, and also just the shenanigans. Like I said, it's kind of steeped in like D&D meme culture of it's just like this is how it goes, and it's, but like with actually a quality of production that's legitimately impressive. There were some shots in there where I'm like, oh man, those are legitimately good shots, like very well produced in terms of the VFX, in terms of the cinematography, like everything about it. And obviously, you've got like high production value. You got Chris Pine in there, right? So you do have some like named, A-list cast.
Who's Chris Pine?
And
I mean, I know who Chris Pine is, but what class or what is Chris Pine playing?
He's playing, I guess, effectively the lead of the film because he's the biggest A-lister.
He's the rogue?
But it's no, he's a bard.
He's a bard. Oh, I thought because like the name of the film is Thieves and was it Thieves?
Honor Among Thieves.
Honor Among Thieves. It was Honor Among Thieves. I was assuming the lead was going to be a rogue.
That's what I thought as well. I thought it was going to be a party of rogues, but I thought not. Or I thought wrong. Because I don't think there's a single rogue in the party in that film. I think Thieves is just... it's quite possible. I think Thieves is just what they're referring to adventurers as.
That's probably, yeah. Well, to be fair,
that's the vibe I kind of got from the trailer. Was they're like, what profession are you in? We're doing thieving. It's like, but they're just doing regular dungeon delving and taking artifacts. Yeah, it's like that's what all adventurers do.
To be fair, that is what the original adventuring was basically all grave robbing. That's what D&D was based off of. Like it's kind of like weird to think about, but like grave robbing is technically what adventuring is. Like all these people that you're taking these, or like all these artifacts used to come from people who you're probably like treading on their graves to do. Like you literally bust into a crypt, fought a necromancer, ripped like his staff out of his cold dead hands. In any other culture, that's called grave robbing.
That's fair. And it looks like the villain of this movie is going to be it's a little ambiguous, but it seems to be some sort of a lich. It looks like a lich type of person.
Lich is
might be Vecna.
Lich is a good standard. I was gonna say Lich is a good standard villain, but like Vecna is becoming, obviously with Stranger Things, Vecna is becoming like a pretty mainstream, like people know who Vecna is now who aren't D&D nerds.
Yeah, he's a pretty mainstream villain now.
Yeah.
I mean, well, there was I think Critical Role was like the big
definitely
boost first, because like being the big bad of Critical Role, and then Stranger Things, it's like those are a series of things where it's just like Vecna is becoming a little bit more of a household name. So it wouldn't surprise me if this lich turns out to be Vecna, but I don't think they dropped that name in the trailer. It does kind of look like it might be generic lich bad guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if they want to keep that, you said it looked a little generic. I think if they want to do that as a like intentional production standard, keeping everything a little generic and not like too specific, having generic lich bad guy would work. There are also actually a lot of generic lich bad guys in D&D, like proper D&D like modules in the lore of the Forgotten Realms that you could probably draw on as well. Like what was the one that Matt Koval likes to use for a lot of his early level parties? I'm trying to remember that lich's name.
It's not a lich.
There's a lich who because there's a couple of bad guys that he likes to use. And there's one of them.
Calorel the Vile.
Maybe. I don't
That's not a lich, though. Well, like I said, I don't think he uses any liches in his low-level adventures, because liches are historically high-level baddies.
Well, that's true, because it might just be like a dark wizard type of person. They're a magic user of some kind.
Yeah.
On their way to lich, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. Also a viable villain.
Yeah.
For lower levels. So, but all sorts of stuff in there. But it's super cool. Just super cool to see this D&D stuff portrayed in high production value film.
Yeah.
Right? Like to see a full CGI, well animated displacer beast was just like a kind of like cool moment where I was like, oh man, I didn't know I needed to see that. It was just super cool. There was you had a gelatinous cube was in there. You got a mimic, a good old fashioned chest mimic.
I want to see. I didn't realize that I wanted to see a live action, or not live action, but like photorealistic rendered gelatinous cube. Gelatinous cubes are funny.
Oh yeah,
I love gelatinous cubes.
They're hilarious.
They're one of those classic D&D monsters that are literally based around the playing of the game of D&D. Like when you play the game of D&D, you play in 5x5 squares, you move, however many feet at a time. And it's just like this creature was designed to fill one space in D&D. Like literally fill it to the corners, to the edges, which is a 5x5 cube. So, which is why this gelatinous object, which is gelatinous, you would think that it would fill to expand in whatever space it's in, is a cube. Because that's how D&D is measured in.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that's just like very obviously designed for the game.
Yeah, and it's great. I love that kind of stuff. Like another classic D&D monster, right? The beholders, right? Beholders are creatures designed to interact with as many spells and saves and weird magic stuff in D&D as it could possibly cram into one creature. It's like we need one creature just to be a menace to players. What do? We give it 9 actions. Okay. But how do we do that? Assign each action to an eyeball and just give this thing 9 eyes. Cool. Now we have a monster. We have these characters that, like, going through a 5x5 hallway. We need a creature to help, stop them in their tracks. What are we going to do? We'll fill up one of those spaces with a monster. Just make it made of acid and sure, it's gelatinous cube. It's entirely designed around the playing of the game. And I love that stuff. It's so D&D to have a creature designed for a board game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so super cool. You've told me that about, like, we've talked about the beholders before and how they specifically interact with the mechanics. And it's like, yeah, that is true. They're between their anti-magic cone and everything else, like, they specifically interact with D&D mechanics. Like, they're a fantasy monster that is designed not to stump any regular generic fantasy adventures, but D&D adventurers specifically. They are designed to fight. Yeah. And that's super cool. So yeah, I hope. Well, man, that'd be so cool if we get a beholder in the movie. I don't know about that though.
That's a little bit crazy.
That'd be a little bit crazy. But yeah, they had all sorts of stuff in there. But we did see there are plenty of, you guessed it, dragons in the trailer.
Are there? Awesome.
So it is. Yeah. Well, there are dungeons and there are dragons in this movie. It would seem. Yeah,
it's the full package.
It's the full package. But they actually portrayed something in the trailer that I've actually been wanting to see a visual representation of for a long time, because I always had a hard time imagining it. Because this is one of those dragon combinations where I'm like, I don't entirely understand how this one goes with that color. And I'm like, wait. Okay, now I think I get it.
Okay. Is a specific color of dragon, like a chromatic dragon color?
Yeah, it is a chromatic dragon.
Is it black?
There's one chromatic dragon. Yeah.
I love black dragons. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
I love the look and the appearance and the visual design of black dragons. I've always loved that. But however, I've never understood, like, what is acid breath? Has been my entire DM lifelong question. Is like, what in the world is acid breath? What does that look like? I don't understand how I'm supposed to describe this. And I've thought of all sorts of different workarounds of how I would do it in my head, but none of them really mesh with, like, why is this coming out of a dragon whose color is black? And after seeing this trailer, I'm like, oh, that's probably how it's supposed to look.
I need to see it. I'm gonna watch this trailer after this. I might have. Raph, I think I am going to break my vow of silence on trailers, and
oh no, it's happening.
I think that period is over. I think I need to start watching trailers.
What you need to do is I don't think you should go all the way to the opposite extreme where I watch every trailer.
I'm not going to do that.
My way.
You're a crazy person, Raph.
I think you just ought to watch all the trailers that I recommend to you.
Exactly. I think at this point I've gotten to the section of my, like, filmmaking career now where it's just inconvenient to not watch trailers. Because it's like, it used to be that, I'm not going to watch a trailer because I'm going to watch the movie. I don't have time for that anymore. Just give me the trailer and I'll be satisfied.
That's true. Some of these trailers are as good as watching the movie anyway.
Some of these trailers are completely different experiences from watching the movie, apparently.
It's true. But yeah, there's a pretty long shot involving a black dragon where I'm like, ooh, that's that's how it's supposed to look. Okay, my excitement for black dragons has been reinvigorated.
Oh, excuse me.
I understand acid breath now.
Do you remember How to Train Your Dragon?
I do.
Me and Rose watched that again recently, and we watched it because it was going.
The first one?
The first one. It was going off of Netflix. I don't remember when it was. I think the end of last month. It was supposed to go off of Netflix. We checked again recently. It's still on there, so I guess whatever.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah. There was another movie. I don't remember which one. I had to do that where I saw a movie was going off. So I watched it before the deadline.
Yeah.
And it totally just renewed its thing.
Yeah, and it just stayed
sometimes on I guess they never know.
So anyways, we ended up watching How to Train Your Dragon again. And do you remember that dragon that has 2 heads and one of them breathes gas and the other one ignites it with a spark?
No, but that sounds like a dope concept.
Oh, it's such a dope dragon. And because you remember, like, the story of the movie, like, Vikings, they don't like dragons, and then Vikings start riding dragons and become dragon riders. But there's this group of little kids who are going through dragon training, and each one of them is assigned one of, like, I don't know, like one of the dragons that they fight through their training. They're like, each one, the personalities like all match up. Like the fat one rides a fat dragon, and like there's these two twins who ride one head of this double-headed dragon.
Oh, that's
it's super cool. It's super cool. But yeah, there's this dragon, so like it breathes this like noxious gas, and the other one, like, I think it like flicks its tongue against its teeth and makes a spark. It's super dope. That initial breath of just like the that's kind of how I imagine like acid breath, of just like this corrosive gas, like a chemical corrosion.
Yeah. Well, and that's the neat part about D&D is like you could always flavor it that way, right? Because it's like it gives you the mechanics, but you could always describe the flavor to your specification of what a dragon's breath is like.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that.
I have a very specific idea about how dragons should be in like a tabletop gaming kind of mechanics situation, that like 5e dragons don't really satisfy my ideal dragon ideas.
Really?
I like 5e
You're
dragons.
Complain about D&D dragons?
I like 5e dragons in lore, but on paper, they dissatisfy me.
I love them on paper. What's wrong with them on paper?
They're flat.
But that's the point. They're dragons.
What's that mean? No, just like there's a lot of stuff
to be like a plug and play kind of monster.
Well, it's just there's a lot of stuff that I think a dragon should be able to do that these dragons can't.
Okay, for example,
I think their breath needs to be way scarier. I think it's not like.
What do you mean? It does so much damage.
I know, but they only have an ult. That's the problem. They need a basic attack too. That isn't just wings, tail, and fangs. Their breath needs to be the primary thing that this dragon is built around. It's not just big ult, roll a d6 to recharge, and then they get another big ult. I like that. Keep it, but there needs to be more on top of it. There needs to be another action they can use with their breath that isn't just one attack, maybe every 3 rounds or whatever. 3.5 rounds, I think, on average.
Yeah, well, I guess the metallics get 2 breath options that I think recharge separately. So they might have a bit more, but I guess if you're not the baddies, then when are you gonna fight a metallic?
What do they get?
Yeah. I suppose I'll have to wait for you to run a dragon on me so I can see what your big dragon ideas are.
Which ones did the metallics get? Do they get like a line and a cone?
Yeah, so they get an elemental breath, just like the chromatics, and then they also get a non-elemental
non-lethal
breath.
one.
So
right?
usually, they get a non-lethal
like
option, which is usually some sort of debuff or or a sleep or things of that nature.
Well, the only reason they have that, I think, is simply because they are the good guys. They're like, if you are, for whatever reason, if you end up finding a gold dragon, it's just like, the only options I have here are kill you or kill you faster. So we're going to give you another option here that's not kill you, but still win the encounter.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think there should be just more stuff the dragon can be able to do with their breath. I would love a dragon that was just like its breath attack, or like its fire breath, or whatever it is, right? Like fire, ice thing. Like it has little mini versions. Like it's not all fireball all the time, which is, still great. They should be able to have, they need a firebolt equivalent to just be able to do on their action every turn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
like
also,
I said, I'll have to wait for you to run a dragon on me to find out all your big dragon ideas, which I don't know, may be happening sooner than later.
Ooh. Hold on, I'm thinking. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to put dragons in Varric.
Who knows? It could happen. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to expect of that campaign yet. We haven't been doing too much prep. Well, I was going to say, speaking of other movie trailers I've seen lately. So I shared with you a bit. I was posting about this on the community server.
Right.
But I saw this trailer for this movie called Carter, which is it's a Korean film that's coming to Netflix, a Korean action movie. And it is directed by the
this one.
Same individual who directed the Villainous, which was a big action movie that came out a few years back that we still haven't gotten a chance to see yet, but we have been meaning to.
I don't remember which one
yeah,
the villainess was.
That was the one with the one thing I know about it. I mean, I know a lot of people saw it, and I heard a lot about it in the action community. However, it's most notorious for having the motorcycle chase that inspired the motorcycle chase from John Wick 3.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Except in John Wick 3, it's a blockbuster film, so it's a big composited hullabaloo. But in the villainess, it's done pretty much entirely practical, from what I understand. Yeah, they just went for it because it's lower budget, just martial arts movie goodness.
Yeah, just warrior spirit.
But it looks
filmmaking. We need to make this film.
Exactly.
It's going to have this scene in it, so we're going to shoot it.
Yep. So it looks. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but it looks absolutely insane. But just like a lot more elaborately choreographed than the same scene in John Wick 3 as well, and just insane stunt work. But yeah, Carter looks like that on like steroids.
That's just the real-time action one, right?
All the time. Yeah, from what I understand, it's a real-time film, and it looks absolutely insane. Loryn, it's been a while since we've seen a good action movie, so we need to do that at some point. I think we need to watch both those movies together at some point. Yeah, because we need a fix. We haven't seen a great martial arts action movies in a while. But I'm actually legitimately excited about that one. It looks pretty insane, and just everything about it looks great. Like how the storytelling, how cinematic it looks, and just how elaborately choreographed and well designed and well shot the action is. It looks awesome all around. It's been a while since I've seen an action movie trailer that has given me chills on account of the action alone in the trailer.
Yes.
Yeah, like there's just so many moments in that trailer where I'm just like, oh man, that was great.
All right, I'm gonna watch that trailer too.
Yeah, it looks just balls to the wall insane. I mean, I'm here for it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I think this might be a Korean director that we need to get into, because there's not really a huge market for Korean action so far. Like South Korea hasn't done as good of a job, I suppose, establishing itself as an action film market, right? Yeah. Obviously, Chinese action, the Hong Kong film industry is the pioneer of great martial arts action, and there have been a lot from a lot of other places as well. But yeah, like Korea, you don't really think of as being an action movie market.
There's been a couple of like Korean films in that kind of there've been a couple of Korean action films that have come out that have kind of broken through in the action community, but like it's not systematic. Like it's just like cult classic type stuff, right? Like I think with Old Boy is what I was thinking of.
Well, the thing is, like Old Boy wasn't an action movie though.
But that's the thing, right? Like, because it's not but it had that one great action sequence.
Yeah, it was a revenge drama with one phenomenal action scene in the middle of it. Yeah. But it was, if you watch that whole movie, it's not an action movie by any means. I mean, there are a few moments of action violence, but like for the most part, it's just the one scene.
I think that's true, because I think it's mostly just like that movie wasn't an action film; it was a violent film, right? There was a lot of violence in that film, but not all of it was action. Mm-hmm. So
exactly,
yeah, I think they just did violence very well, and then of course when it came to physical violence, they did that extremely well as well. But yeah, like that's the thing, is like there have been a couple of different stuff that come out, but I guess no more than any place else that doesn't have a system of action movies. Like they don't have like obviously Hong Kong cinema perfected the action techniques that we pretty much use, perfected the action techniques that are used pretty much everywhere else now. At least they should be. They're starting to like seep into the Hollywood system as well. Yeah, like Hong Kong does it very well. There's a system, like there's systems in place to make good action sequences. But yeah, I guess like Korea doesn't have that kind of system set up to be able to do action movies as like a token genre, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And yeah, I think this director has an opportunity with his successes with The Villainess, as well as, which was a more independent film, but then this one going, to Netflix and stuff like that, to kind of establish a niche for Korean martial arts action, which again, there hasn't been much of, which is insane to think about because South Korea, Korea is home to a pretty widespread martial art that is used in a lot of other action markets, right? Like a lot of action stars have Taekwondo backgrounds.
Is there like
Donnie Yen is highly trained in Taekwondo, Scott Adkins, people like that?
Like there are whole action films based around an entire martial art, right? Like obviously there's Tony Jaa and all his movies are basically all Muay Thai. And I forget what the other version of Muay Thai is, because Muay Thai is a sport version. But there's, and obviously Kung Fu and pick your Chinese martial art, right? Are there any movies that are Taekwondo?
Yeah, I don't know if there are any like raw Taekwondo movies where it's like that's the art around which it focuses.
It's like oh yeah, here's an action film where the main character is a Taekwondo specialist. The main character and like the primary, like the actor or stunt person who plays the lead, like they're a Taekwondo specialist. I mean, I don't think we've gotten any of those, right? Like that it feels like a market that
I don't think so.
That should exist.
Yeah, right. It really does, because because that movie would just be beautiful to behold.
I know
it's a very great looking martial art, like a fun martial art to watch specifically.
It's inherently like it's one of those demonstration martial arts that's just like designed around being flashy and being big and doing dope stuff with the human body. Like that sounds like you should put that on camera and it wins.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's already a huge market for it in tricking. You know what I mean? Like Taekwondo is the basis for so many tricking routines. It's like it just seemed it is inherently cinematic to some extent. And yeah, I think it's a shame that I don't know if we've gotten a proper like Taekwondo showcase to the same extent that we got, Muay Thai with Tony Jaa, or Pencak Silat with Iko Uwais, or, boxing with Rocky.
Yeah.
Right? Like we haven't really got a pure showcase movie for that. The Karate Kid even, it's like
the Karate Kid with Kung Fu. Wait.
I don't know if that's how that works. Maybe if you're Jaden Smith,
the new one.
Don't talk about that.
The remake of Karate Kid, which was so weird and wrong, and I don't even. What the heck is Jackie Chan doing in that film? I
have no idea.
Why are they in China? Why is he training on the Great Wall of China, doing literally anything in a Kung Fu or in a Karate Kid movie?
Yeah, like karate isn't exactly the first thing that comes to mind when you think Jackie Chan. Is it?
Anyways, that was just a quick jab at that movie. I like taking jabs at that movie. It's weird.
Jab.
But
yeah, like we haven't really gotten a showcase movie for that.
Yeah, and like my usual response is just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go make that. But I really don't think I could. You really need somebody whose like thing is Taekwondo to make that movie as good as it could be, because Taekwondo is very technical.
Oh yeah. You need somebody who knows that art inside and out.
Yeah, because I know a little bit of Taekwondo, but like I haven't left the ground and like gone into orbit yet. Like that's just a level beyond me. Like I do not understand some of these things that like Taekwondo professionals can do with their body. Like I just don't know how you can do that. I'm just too big. So it's like,
well, I mean, look at Scott Adkins though.
Yeah.
He's freaking huge, and he does these Taekwondo tricks like they're nothing.
Yeah, but I'm an inch taller than him.
You're a couple inches taller than him, actually.
Like 2 inches. He's 5'10", 5'11".
Still, when he's playing Boyka though, he's heavier than you.
How heavy is he when he plays Boyka? Like, what's his
I think I saw one interview snippet where I think he said his upper range when he's in like movie shape, which would definitely be Boyka. I think Boyka's the heaviest he gets. Yeah, he's like 215.
Oh yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Is what I think what it translates to in pounds. Of course, he's European, so he's
kilos.
The kilograms. Yeah. But I think I did the calculator, and I think it was roughly about 215.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Ish pounds.
But he definitely has way more muscle than I do.
Yeah, you're probably not that cut right now.
No, not that cut, absolutely not. But if I were to be as lean as he was and that defined, I would probably be like 230, 240.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But either way.
Either way. Yeah.
I was gonna say
Scott Adkins is a specimen though. That's cheating.
It's you cannot compare yourself to Scott Adkins without also being Scott Adkins. But I was gonna say I should start the Australian action film scene, but then I realized, wait, Mad Max is Australian. But no, it's a different kind of action. I can bring in Australian martial arts action. I was like, oh wait, that I can do. That I can do.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if there's a huge market for that. Yeah. Although to be fair, like the star of Mad Max, Mel Gibson, did go on to be a big martial arts, kind of action star.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Kind of.
You can't dig at Mel Gibson. Well, I mean, I guess you can, but everybody does.
Yeah.
But come on. He's pretty good. He's not bad.
Not bad and pretty good are two different things.
What are you talking about? He fought Jet Li. He did all right.
Yeah, okay. But either way.
He's a great actor, though.
Either way. I need to get started making some waves over here in Australia. Oh yeah, I should probably mention on the podcast. I might be getting work in Australia as an actor.
This is true.
Yeah.
You're entering the Australian talent pool.
I am. Well, I'm trying to at least. But
I'm telling you, next Mel Gibson.
It might happen. Just all I want to be like. I at this point now, I keep switching my definitions of success and my terms of or my win conditions. But now getting into Mad Max is my next win condition. Mad Max 5 is it going to be? The next Mad Max was they rebooted it, right? So it'd be Mad Max 2.
Well, they didn't reboot it. They just kept going because it's always been an anthology.
I guess that's true. But it's the second movie with Tom Hardy.
The second Tom Hardy movie. Yeah, that is coming up.
Second Tom Hardy Mad Max.
Yeah, well, they got 2 Mad Max movies they're working on currently. They're working on a Furiosa movie and a new Mad Max movie.
I remember the Furiosa one. But either one of those, just stick me in.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't shoot in Australia anymore, though.
They don't?
Yeah, the first few did, but not anymore because I guess they found better deserts elsewhere. Probably. But I mean, it is still an Australian production, so it's still possible probably to get exported for that.
Oh heck yeah! Fly me back out to LA.
No, I think they shoot in like Africa and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's fair.
Yeah,
I was wondering if they went to like someplace in the U.S. just for like the tax benefits, because I don't imagine the tax benefits in Australia are as good as tax benefits for filming somewhere in like the U.S. who has a much bigger
I don't
film
imagine.
industry.
But I think it's I don't remember where Fury Road was shot, but it was a mix between a couple of different locales. One of them might have been in Australia, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, either way, still, not Tim Miller, George Miller.
Yeah.
Too many Millers. Tim Miller, Frank Miller, George Miller. George Miller is, he's still Australian, and I know he still does a lot of, the industry work out of there, and casting and whatnot. Yeah. So there's still a pretty good chance to get there from the Australian industry.
Yeah, yeah. Because apparently the Australian film industry is, it's no Hollywood and it's no Bollywood, I guess. Bollywood is like what is, I think that's the second biggest film industry, and then China after? No, China's...
well, it depends on how you measure, like what metric you use by biggest. If by biggest you mean like
gross amount of work.
Gross, yeah, money. Like if you mean by the amount of money it generates, Bollywood is by far the largest film market in the world.
That's true, right? But yeah, but either way, apparently it's not bad either, because there's a lot of stuff happening in like the Australian film industry that now that I'm hearing about. It's like, oh wow, you guys are doing it. You guys are doing stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, well, first off, Australia has produced a lot of recognizable talent too.
They have, yeah.
There are a lot of great actors that have come out of the Australian industry
or gone into the Australian industry.
Yeah, one or the other. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's why I was kind of comparing to Mel Gibson's career path, because he had a very unique one insofar as he's an American. He was an American A-list talent who got discovered in the Australian film industry before there was an Australian film industry. You know, like he was an American working in Australian theater who happened to get cast in a little indie pick, right? Mm-hmm. Because there wasn't a huge blossoming Australian film industry at that time. Mm-hmm. And it just set his whole career because it became a huge sleeper hit. And so, yeah, you know, stuff like that happens, but it's like kind of weird because then, you know, he comes back to America and is like this huge star, but like, he got his start in Australia. Yeah. So he was an American living abroad. And that's the thing is, we've talked about this a lot before too, is the fact that Australia is a weird place insofar as there are a lot of adoptive Australians. Well, a lot of people who are born elsewhere immigrate to Australia and identify for pretty much the rest of their lives as Australians.
Well, that's something that I realized now living here for 3 months is a very interesting comparison to the United States. The US and Australia have very similar kind of like origin stories, right? Like they were British colonies at first, different kinds of British colonies, but both British, like both people who are going to the colonies established in Australia and in the US, a lot of them were running from something, like they didn't want to be there, right? Like a lot of obviously there's a prison colony here in Australia, but a lot of people who were going to the US or to the Americas at that time, they were all refugees, and they were all people who were like political outcasts or religious outcasts, right? They all were going to these new colonies to find a new place to kind of start again, right? And some people came here because they were running from tax collectors, but either way, there's that kind of shared similarities in like the histories. However, for whatever reason, America became extremely anti-immigration and they got super nationalist, right? Like it's like we became our own identity. Now it's like now we're just going to completely lock ourselves in and do this weird kind of
isolationist.
This weird
kind of the opposite of its founding principle.
Yeah, this weird isolationist thing, which is exactly the opposite of their founding principles, or is, at least here in Australia, what I've seen, there's a lot of like multicultural acceptance and celebration. Like there's a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, we love bringing people in and, you know, learning from these new cultures and making it all Australian, right? So like, especially the food here, because it's a very strange island nation, but it is an island nation. It's a massive island, but still an island. And so the food culture here, like there's a lot of seafood and a lot of like, obviously they have a really big like barbecue culture here. Not as big as the barbecue culture in the US, I think, but it's like, yeah, the kinds of seafood and barbecue cultures that they have, like they didn't start here. They all started somewhere else, right? Like Korean barbecue is a whole thing. They have, they take from all those kinds of different cultures and make it Australian. Because like, yeah, we took those like techniques and all those people who came here, and now we have all these unique Australian dishes. Like you can, you know, eat kangaroo here. Where else can you do that? So like you take these things and you make them Australian, but drawing in from these other cultures and giving those cultures the recognition that they deserve for adding to Australian culture. Like it's very weird being here and saying like, oh yeah, like I recognize all these things are happening, but you guys talk about it more for some reason. Like you guys are just saying like, yeah, these are all different, like 5 different cultures all mashed into one place, and here's what they are.
Yeah, very fascinating.
It's very strange. Like they're a lot more open about their multiculturalism.
Yeah, and probably have just had more open borders generally. I'm imagining,
Except
which
recently.
is probably how that, except recently, but where nobody has had open borders. But like that's probably, I guess, now that you mention it, a huge contributing cultural factor to the fact that a lot of people become adoptive Australians. But yeah, the sheer number of high profile actors and celebrities that have become adoptive Australians is insane. Like, I already mentioned, Mel Gibson, who's like practically knighted Australian, but like, actually, I think he is actually like some form of knighted. I didn't know they had that sort of thing in Australia, but I guess it makes sense coming from British culture. But there's, Hugh Jackman as well, right?
Right.
Most people don't realize isn't Australian. He was born in England. You got Guy Pearce, also
really
not Australian, identifies as Australian.
Oh wow. I didn't know Guy Pearce was a naturalized Australian. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't know what the technical term exactly would be.
Because like in the U.S. it's naturalized. I don't know if it's the same thing here in Australia.
I don't even know if Russell Crowe was born in Australia. He might not have been either. Nope, New Zealand.
Yeah, close enough.
So, yeah. Well, Guy Pearce was also New Zealand. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So, like, I guess a lot of people just hopped over to Australia and then became Australians.
Yeah, it's a quick swim.
Quick swim, backstroke.
Yep.
But it's just the list goes on and on of a lot of people that we think of as being Australian who are not actually from Australia, but they just identify themselves that way because it's for some reason it's just a popular place to make a new home in, I guess.
Yep. Check back with me in a few years, see if I'm Australian yet.
Yeah. I'll ask. Yeah, we'll see how long we keep this podcasting going. Figure out if you're Australian. But I mean, that's super inconvenient. It sounds like it was a whole adventure just to get there, and it's just like I don't want to do that every time I want to see it.
The next time it happens probably won't be in the middle of a pandemic. Hopefully the next time this happens we won't be in the middle of a pandemic, but you never know with all these like dead diseases that are resurging.
That's true. We just had a case of something here, the first case of something in the US for like a decade.
Was it polio?
I can't remember what it was.
Polio.
I think it was polio. And yeah.
Like, okay. I remember I was watching Bo the Fifth Column, and I think he was talking about this case or like this whole thing that's going on. And it's one of those things where it's like, y'all, polio was the first thing we killed with vaccines. How did we go back that far? Like literally.
Yeah, that is actually true.
Vaccines were invented to cure polio or to destroy polio as a disease. What happened?
Yeah. It was polio. It was in New York. The first case of polio since 2013 in the United States.
You normally don't get vaccines for polio. Like, as when you're a kid, you have all those like list of vaccines you get, all like your tetanus and all this other stuff. I think we stopped doing vaccines for polio because it was so dead that it wasn't even a threat anymore.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
Insanely dead.
That's what I vaguely remember hearing something like that. But either way, that was literally the first thing we killed. And now it's back. Mm-hmm. What happened?
Yeah. Monkeypox is a thing now. It's insane. So we'll see. We'll see what the state of the world continues to be. And how it affects our travel plans. Yeah. But that's insane. Yeah. But you know what? I think at the very least, you'll come over here to shoot movies.
Oh, absolutely.
So
well, here's my current, I guess, career path that I'm trying to get going. Like, obviously.
Yeah. What is the dream?
The dream. Obviously, I want to be in the film industry as a career. Like I'm happy with anything, but right now, talent or getting any of those like entry level jobs, right? That's just getting my foot in the door, being able to get on sets, meet people, make connections. Right now, Australia happens to be the most opportune place for me to do that because I accidentally accumulated a ton of film contacts here. I now know a bunch of people who are actively shooting or like who are actively in film projects in Australia because of everyone I've been working with through like Rose's TAFE in her film school. So I was like, okay, I can start that here because I'm well connected now. I can get in, do my talent thing. I don't know, extra work.
Jobs.
Yeah, jobs, right? Need a couple of commercials, get my contacts, and then eventually, I'm thinking this is how this works, anyways. Eventually, you get to the point where you are wanted as talent everywhere there's film, right? Like it's gonna get to the point where it's like you just become a name, and then people who are like, oh, I want to shoot films. Let me look at my talent pool of the world, and then you can get into those type of things, which might mean you get work in LA, you might get work in New York, right? Like those kinds of bigger places for filming. That's the hope, is to be able to get off the ground here and then get my name into the bigger pool of names, like B-list actors, right? C-list actors, right? I'm like a X-list actor right now. Get to the point where people who do all the casting are looking at a larger pool of talent to be able to say, oh yeah, I could fly to LA and do this thing for a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever, and be able to go, oh yeah, now it's time to go back to the US and live there for a little bit and then do some jobs there, but then come back or whatever, however my citizenship stuff's going to end up working with, or my residency, because I might end up living here. It is nice living here. It's really nice.
Yeah. We'll see. Well, you'll have to climb the ladder pretty far to get to that point where you're in the international pool.
Yeah.
Because you gotta do something impressive.
Well,
go make the raid while you're there.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. If I can make a name as a stunt person or a stunt coordinator or second unit director or anything like that here, it's going to be a lot louder of a splash than if I made that same kind of contributions to film if I was in LA. There's tons of me in LA, right? There's way too many of them. I was about to be another one of those people because that was the idea, was to go to LA and do that. But I think now it'd be a lot easier to, I guess get discovered or like make a break here, because I know the level of talent that I have as a filmmaker. I know my potential, and there's enough of a industry here that I can get my roots and get started and get going and make a name and stand out, because there's just less of my type of people like us. There's just less of us here. When you compare us to like LA, right? Obviously there's a ton of talented people here in Australia. There's a ton of talented people everywhere, but there's way too many of us in LA, in New York. There's way too many of us, just way too many. So I have a higher chance succeeding here first and then moving over to LA.
Well, especially since, as it seems with your current networking, you're already inserting yourself at a higher level of industry than you'd be starting at if you were to go to any of those other hubs.
Probably.
Right. Just you already seemingly have access to just like, a slightly higher level of industry just as a starting point here.
And
so
again, because the splashes that I would be making as a creative are just louder because there's fewer splashes, right? It's not like, oh yeah, hey, you're an editor, right? Cool, get in line. It's like, oh, actually, you did that pretty well. Last time I saw that was a couple projects ago.
Yeah. Well,
a lot more opportunity here.
If you're going to be talent, I guess it's time to start training your talent.
Yeah,
so
have to get back in shape.
You're going to have to, you need to get back and work in shape.
Yeah,
you need to be able to move.
I can move for a short amount of time. Well, I recently did. We shot an action scene for one of the class assignments that I was talent on, and they needed an extra director. So I'm like, yeah, I'll direct the scene. It's going to be an action scene though. And that was really fun, going back into doing shooting for action, but also like, I didn't realize how much of that just doesn't go away. Like we just dropped into it. I was like, man, I haven't shot anything in years? And it just feels natural just going right back into this. Like I'm moving, I'm like hitting my marks. I'm like, I'm aware of the camera. I'm like stacking well. I'm like, yeah, this stuff just doesn't go away apparently. So like it was a very short shoot. I think it was only like 45 minutes of filming. But I was like, yeah, we got a lot done. And I think a lot of it just has to do with working with professionals. When you aren't doing everything yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I only had to focus on being talent, right? I only had to be the actor. And it's like, this is actually kind of easy.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible not having to do everything yourself, right? Must be nice.
Amazing. I should try it.
I should. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a ton of fun. I can't wait to see the fruits of all that.
Especially when you strip down everything like that. And like, if I'm just doing talent, that's like, that's the only thing I have to focus on. I think I got that in the bag.
Mm-hmm. But still, yeah, you gotta, I guess, especially in the stunt world, you really gotta push your body.
Well, I'm gonna start pushing. Yeah. Right now, I am solidly entry level.
Solidly entry level. Yeah, you're definitely a cut above Kevin. some guy who just showed up on set.
I'm not just anyone off the street. I'm not just like your average extra. I gotta start being more than your not average extra.
What a bar.
What a bar, right?
More than not average. Right.
Slightly above average.
We need to wind this down, but is it too late to talk about the James Webb Space Telescope?
Man, no, because that's going to be going on for a long time. We're going to continue to see stuff coming out from the James Webb Telescope for a while. Obviously, they just released a bunch of images. How long ago was that?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. It was very recent. Those were the first images from that telescope since it launched. Yeah. And that was kind of a huge thing. And apparently, yeah, like that's like the clearest we've ever seen space, like ever.
Well, because those are the first photos that were released that were finished photos. Because a lot of photos that were released before were just calibration stuff, just to make sure that we had it right. I think the public had access to some of those, but most of it was just like, getting the white balance right or whatever it is, the technical stuff, right? And those were the first ones that were released of like, yeah, it's ready, hit the shutter. And man, so good. So
yeah, absolutely stunning photos.
I like how
Hank Green did a pretty profound video.
Ooh, I gotta watch that. There's a science presenter that I follow who tweeted out, it's like, these two photos were taken like 30 years apart or whatever, right? Like I think one was Hubble, one was James Webb. And it was like, it took us that long to fill in this corner of space because the other photo had a missing corner.
Why did it have a missing corner?
Because you shoot these in batches. So you focus on one area at a time. You get that exposed for like however long it is, the exposure is, right? And then you just like move the lens or the camera or whatever, and you focus it down and do quadrants. So that's how you get these massive images, because there are several dozen images all stitched together. But there was just one corner that wasn't finished. And it was like, it took us this long to fill in that corner. It's just like, oh, I love this guy. He's fun.
Wow.
But yeah, because obviously they had the full picture was a full rectangle, right? You don't usually get that kind of stuff in space photography for this kind of level of stuff, just simply because you have to really pay attention to where you're shooting, because it just takes so much time. So you have to pick and choose which areas you want to focus on. And sometimes there'll be gaps in the photos because it's like, yeah, there's nothing there that we need to look at right now. This is more interesting. We want to capture this particular supernova because we know that's going to happen, or we know that is happening. And so we need to capture it. So oftentimes there'll be gaps in these kind of images. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's not that Hubble couldn't do it. It's just really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super fascinating and just really, I don't know, huge. It's cosmic.
It's literally, it's literally cosmic.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's again, we've done a lot of, awesome in the literal sense of the term. Mm-hmm. It's very much, the kind of thing that just really, I don't know, expands your ideas and thoughts about the universe, but also is just kind of, I don't know, it's just really awe-inspiring.
It puts everything in perspective.
Yeah, it puts everything in perspective. Yeah. And that's kind of what Hank Green's video was about. Was just like, people feel kind of small after that, but it's still pretty extraordinary. It's just pretty extraordinary photography, and we've done some extraordinary space photography before. Mm-hmm. But to see the latest and greatest of something that was just launched into space, and because the technology is always going to be like leagues behind current technology just by virtue of the fact that you have to launch stuff, so it's always space. What's out in space is always going to be a little bit behind what's current, but it's fascinating series of images. And that's kind of exciting that we're going to be getting more of that for decades to come, I suppose, before we launch another one.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We'll keep that as an ongoing one then. Yeah, if you hear of anything interesting.
Yeah, the James Webb Space Telescope. It's I forget what the acronym, or not the acronym, the initialism for that is, but the short version of the James Webb Space Telescope, because that's a really long name. There's so much that I remember. Just really quick, I remember listening to all the stuff that was going into not even making the actual like lens in the camera or anything like that, just like the sun shields or like the case that's gonna shoot it or that's gonna protect it like as it's in the rocket, because you kind of have to imagine that this is a camera, right? If you drop your camera, something bad might happen, right? This is going on the end of a piece of metal that's exploding.
Yeah,
like the technology that's going into just that kind of stuff is like, it's just mind blowing that we're at this level. We've been at this level for a while, and it's just continuously getting better. It's just so awesome to look at and to know that we are capable of such great things.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating. Well, on that optimistic note, I think that's a good place to wind this recording to a close. So thank you all very much for listening. This has been the Hypercube podcast. This show is edited by Loryn Pacheco, mixed by Raphael Pacheco, with theme music by Mono Memory. Until next time, we'll see you all later. God bless.
Stay curious.